My husband's lover, Ella Perez, and I both had cancer. She claimed to be dying. I actually was. Yet my husband, Levi Miller, believed her lies while dismissing my truth. Later, when criminals captured me, they said, "Call your husband. His arrival ensures your safety." His response cut deeper than any blade. "If you want to return, do it yourself. Don't expect me to retrieve you." With those words, he personally pushed me toward death. When my skinned body lay cold in the morgue, he didn't recognize his wife, the one who would never again disturb his perfect life. Chapter 1. Mr. Miller, we've discovered a female corpse. The method matches those from 3 years ago. Levi's grip tightened around his phone. His face hardened into stone while the officer's urgent voice filled his ear. Ella sensed the shift immediately. She tugged his sleeve with practiced gentleness. "Levi, what's wrong?" "They found a body." His eyes softened as they met hers, his hand automatically reaching to stroke her hair. "If you're unwell, you needn't come."
No.
Determination flashed across her features. "I want to accompany you. This is my duty." I hovered above them, watching. A dull ache spread through what remained of my heart. At the crime scene, Ella transformed into the consummate professional. She examined my body with meticulous care, her brow furrowed in concentration. I observed her with complicated emotions swirling through my spectral form. "This victim has been dead over 3 days, she announced, glancing up at Levi. "The method nearly mirrors the case from 3 years ago." Levi's expression darkened further. He leaned closer, studying what remained of me. His slight frown revealed nothing of whether he found my current state repulsive. His gaze lingered on my lower leg, where a piece was missing. I felt tension ripple through whatever remained of me. Then I laughed at my own foolishness. With my skin removed and features destroyed, recognition was impossible. "Mr. Miller, did you discover something?" An officer's curious voice broke the silence. Levi straightened, composing himself. "Nothing." I scoffed silently. As expected, he failed to recognize his wife, missing for 3 days. How pathetic I was to expect otherwise. In his heart, I never held importance. "Transport it to the morgue for detailed autopsy," Levi ordered, guiding Ella back toward their vehicle. During the drive to the station, Ella suddenly mentioned me. "Levi, I haven't seen your wife for several days." Something flickered in his eyes before vanishing. "It's fine. Last time I visited you, she was arguing and threatened to leave." A barely perceptible smile touched Ella's lips. "You should call her." Levi hesitated, saying nothing. Noting his reluctance, Ella offered, "I'll call her myself." Chapter 2. She called. The line returned a busy signal. Ella frowned. "Has she blocked me?" Levi's eyebrows knitted together, his tone hardening. "Don't concern yourself with her. She's always paranoid." I wasn't paranoid, just dead, incapable of answering any call. Was that my fault too? I hovered there, witnessing everything, my essence filled with helplessness and bitter regret. My body arrived at the station swiftly. Ella personally conducted the autopsy. I observed her silently, conflicting emotions swirling through me. The initial autopsy report emerged that day. DNA results would follow, expedited through the system. Levi stood motionless before the report, his gaze fixed on one word: cancer. Panic and disbelief flashed across his eyes. He retreated to an empty corner, impatiently pulling out his phone. He opened our chat interface. The final message dated 3 years prior. After Ella's return, all communication between us ceased. Levi typed extensively, then closed his phone without sending anything. Instead, he called my best friend. "Is Isla with you? Tell her to come home when she's done with her tantrum." Impatience laced his voice. My friend snapped back, "I was about to ask you the same. I haven't located Isla for 3 days. 3 days?" Levi's pupils dilated. He ended the call abruptly. He reopened my contact, dialing directly. The same cold, busy signal greeted him. Ella approached, her voice honeyed. "Levi, let's eat. We've been working so long I'm famished." Levi shook his head. I have matters to attend. Next time. I floated nearby, watching him speak so gently to her, tasting bitterness. I followed Levi home. He began searching frantically around the house. His purpose eluded me. Suddenly, he discovered numerous medications in my bedside cabinet. Back then, to shield him from worry, I claimed they were vitamins. What he couldn't know, these were all anti-cancer drugs. Perhaps that fault lies with me too. I lied so convincingly that he believed. The day I left home, I finally told him about my cancer. His disgusted response, "Do you even have to copy Ella in having cancer?" That moment shattered me. So, I didn't even possess the right to have cancer. Levi examined the medicine bottles repeatedly. As he read each label, his expression deteriorated progressively. His phone interrupted the moment. "Mr. Miller," Ella collapsed again. "She's been transported to the hospital." He froze momentarily, then pocketed the medicine and rushed out. I remained suspended, watching his departure, an inexplicable sadness rising within whatever remained of my heart. Chapter 3. When Levi arrived at the hospital, Ella had regained consciousness, her complexion ashen. He entered the ward with gentle steps, placing a takeout container on her bedside table. "You're awake. I brought supplements." He opened the box, lifting a spoon to her lips. Ella parted her mouth slightly, accepting his care. I observed this scene, complex emotions surging through me. Envy, jealousy, bitter recognition. I once yearned for such tenderness, but reality disappointed at every turn. I recalled countless days alone in hospital rooms, enduring chemotherapy while Levi remained oblivious. Fearing I might hinder his police work, I faced every pain in isolation. When hunger struck, a single piece of bread sustained me. Such attentive care remained foreign. Watching Levi's gentle ministrations to Ella intensified my anguish. I was once his wife, his closest person, yet this tenderness belonged to another. After several spoonfuls, Ella murmured, "I'm full." Levi wiped her mouth with a dampened cloth, tucking her blanket carefully. As he rose to leave, she caught his hand. "Wait until I fall asleep." Her voice carried practiced vulnerability. Hesitation flickered in his eyes, but he nodded, sitting down beside her. I stood apart, observing their interaction with mixed emotions. Watching Ella's fragile performance, contempt surged through me. She clutched Levi's hand as if fearing his sudden disappearance. Was she truly that pitiable? No wonder Levi remained by her side, devoted and attentive. Unfortunately, I knew Ella's true nature. Beneath her harmless facade lurked cruelty and calculated coldness. Though she didn't kill me herself, after my death, she methodically peeled away my skin. Watching her treat my remains like an art project was something beyond forgetting. Suddenly, Ella jerked awake, as if from a nightmare. She gripped Levi's hand tightly. "Levi, I had a nightmare. Am I dying? I'm terrified the cancer won't be cured." Tears streamed down her cheeks, falling onto his arm. Levi gazed at her, pity and helplessness filling his expression. He pulled her close, attempting to provide comfort. A sly gleam flashed in Ella's eyes, sensing his internal struggle. "Levi, have you contacted your wife? You shouldn't stay with me. Go find her." Feigned urgency filled her voice. Hearing this, Levi instinctively reached toward his pocket. He felt the medicine bottle, gripping it tightly. His mind churned with conflict. "Don't concern yourself with her. She'll return." Irritation saturated his tone. "Rest now. I'll consult with your doctor." He rose, leaving the ward. Ella watched him depart, a smug smile forming on her lips. Outside, Levi located a doctor. Surprisingly, he didn't inquire about Ella's condition but produced the medicine bottle from his pocket. "Doctor, please examine this. What medication is this?" Nervousness tinged his voice. The doctor inspected the bottle, his brow furrowing. "This is anti-cancer medication." His tone remained calm, yet serious. Levi's body trembled violently at these words. "Anti-cancer? Are you certain?" Inexplicable panic surged through him. The doctor nodded, examining the name and dosage. Isn't this Isla's prescription? She missed yesterday's chemotherapy and no one answered our calls. What relation are you to her? I'm her husband, Levi replied, his voice hollow. The doctor's frown deepened. She attended numerous chemotherapy sessions alone. I've never seen you present. You should show more attention to your wife. Each time she arrived alone, sustaining herself with a mere piece of bread. Your neglect is appalling. These words pierced Levi's core. He stood immobile, seemingly deaf to all surroundings. His mind filled with images of Isla enduring chemotherapy in solitude. Each thought amplified his pain. His phone vibrated, shattering the silence. He answered mechanically, hearing an officer's urgent voice. Mr. Miller, the DNA results have arrived. Come to the station immediately. He bolted upright, not bothering to inform Ella, rushing toward the police station. As he ran, overwhelming unease consumed him. Everything seemed to spiral beyond his control. Pushing through the station doors, he encountered dead silence. Officers' solemn expressions greeted him as they cautiously extended the report. Their eyes brimmed with pity. Why hand this to me? Just identify the victim, Levi demanded, his voice unsteady despite attempts at composure. Silence persisted. No one answered. Officers avoided his gaze. One finally gathered courage, speaking weakly. Mr. Miller, you should see for yourself. Levi opened the report. His eyes fell upon my name. His hands began to tremble uncontrollably. Chapter 4. Levi opened the report, his eyes falling on my name. His hands trembled violently. In an instant, his eyes reddened. Tears threatened to spill over. Test it again. There must be a mistake, he roared, his voice shattered with despair and denial. His trembling intensified as he clutched the report, as if rejecting this merciless reality. Mr. Miller, we've retested it. It's definitely your wife. The officer's voice remained low yet uncompromising, each syllable piercing Levi's heart. Ella entered the station at that precise moment. Hearing the devastating revelation, her face drained of color. She covered her mouth, dissolving into theatrical tears. How could it be her? There must be an error. Her cries echoed throughout the station as she swayed dramatically, feigning collapse. Officers rushed to support her, offering clumsy comfort. I observed her performance with cold detachment. Her manufactured tears and calculated grief appeared transparently false to me. Such talent is wasted outside the acting profession, I thought. Supported by officers, Ella approached Levi. She attempted to embrace him. He pushed her away forcefully. His gaze remained hollow and devastated, as if witnessing the collapse of his entire world. Suddenly remembering something, Levi frantically searched for his phone. He scrolled through his call log, finding the final call I'd made to him. His trembling fingers slid across the screen, stopping at that damning record. He collapsed to the ground, head clutched between his hands, buckling under the weight of realization. I caused her death, he whispered, voice saturated with self-recrimination. Yes, I once had a chance at survival. Had he come for me then, everything might have unfolded differently. Instead, he personally pushed me toward annihilation. I recalled the third day of my captivity, when the kidnapper proposed a game. Your husband is currently with another woman. Call him. If he comes immediately, I'll release you. In that moment, I glimpsed hope. The call connected. Before I could speak, Levi stated coldly, if you want to return, do it yourself. Don't expect me to collect you. He disconnected. I heard my heart shatter in that instant. I understood my death sentence had been pronounced by him. In the suffocating silence that followed, time seemed suspended. Levi's ringing phone fractured the stillness, yet he remained unresponsive. Ella, witnessing his devastation, reached for his phone and activated the speaker. Hello, Mr. Miller? This is Sweetie Restaurant. Ms. Bennett ordered a couple-set meal today. We can't reach her. Are you still coming? The staff's voice filled the room. Ella glanced at Levi, preparing to decline, when he suddenly spoke. I'll be right there. His voice emerged low but resolute. Unease coursed through Ella. Levi, I should accompany you. He shook his head.
No.
Isla definitely doesn't want to see you. His words struck her like physical blows, draining the color from her face. He spoke truth. I had no desire to see Ella. Levi arrived at the restaurant alone, occupying the seat I'd reserved. Waitstaff delivered dish after dish, all his favorites. He remained motionless, silently regarding the laden table. After the final course, the waiter presented an elegant cake. 4 simple words adorned it. Happy anniversary. Today marked our wedding anniversary, a date he had originally forgotten. Levi sat alone until closing time. He departed numbly, returning to our house. He didn't activate the lights, sitting alone in darkness until dawn broke. The next morning, someone knocked. Levi opened the door to find a package I had sent. Confused, he retrieved it and retreated inside. He opened it to discover a USB drive and a document. Inserting the drive, he accessed the video file. My smiling, though pallid, face appeared on screen. Levi, I lied. I don't have cancer. I was merely jealous that Ella had cancer and received your devoted care. I'm leaving.
Don't search for me.
I've signed divorce papers. You can be with Ella. My recorded voice sounded unnaturally calm and decisive. His hands trembled as he examined the document, noting my signature. His eyes instantly reddened. Tears fell freely. He released an agonized cry, consumed by remorse and self-recrimination. He regretted not uncovering my deception earlier, not standing beside me when I most needed him. He condemned himself for neglecting me in favor of Ella, forcing me to endure such profound isolation and suffering.
Chapter 5.
Levi walked to the morgue with leaden steps, each movement threatening to shatter him completely. He sat beside my body, silently gazing at me, his eyes holding endless sorrow and self-loathing. He remained for an entire day, as if attempting to etch my image permanently into his consciousness. He reached out, gently caressing my cheek, as if trying to wake me from slumber. His fingers traced my features, intensifying his grief. Isla, why did you leave? His voice emerged raw and broken, saturated with limitless despair. His gaze fixed on my calf wound, where he had once taken a bullet meant for me. He recalled that perilous moment and my determination to shield him. I should have protected you. I failed. Self-recrimination and regret permeated his voice. Ella arrived multiple times, each visit bringing gentle urgings to depart. Levi met her concern with resolute silence. Only when Ella collapsed again did he reluctantly leave. He carried her to the hospital, then sat silently in her room, maintaining his vigil. When Ella awakened to find Levi beside her, joy flickered in her eyes. Levi, don't worry. I'll help find clues. Your wife died so tragically. We can't let her death be meaningless. Levi shook his head coldly.
You should rest.
Each time you faint, I must attend to you. Don't complicate matters further. Her face paled at his words. She had never experienced such coldness from him. Unease and loss spread through her. Before she could respond, Levi continued. Besides, Isla wouldn't want to see us together. Indeed, I had no desire to witness their togetherness. But now, in death, their relationship held no significance for me. I watched them with detached indifference. At the station, Levi gathered his team. His gaze turned steely and uncompromising, determined to apprehend my killer and secure vengeance. We'll transfer a forensic doctor from another team. Ella is unwell and won't participate in this investigation. His voice remained calm yet resolute, as if all emotion had been buried within him. Soon, a new forensic examiner arrived. I watched my body undergo dissection, revealing the button hidden in my stomach. That button, pulled from my captor's clothing when I had seen Ella, yanking desperately at my restraints.